This weekend, I'm going to take it easy. It's been quite a week, hasn't it? I mean, this has been an odd week for the show. We had someone had to reschedule, so we had to sort of duck and dive a bit and dance some and
cranked out 3.
And we cranked out 3, baby.
Yeah.
And we brought change of costumes.
That's right.
just to make it look real.
Right, exactly.
And but we like to be prepped for our people, and it's been a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a good week.
Very good week.
Some very good conversations. And I think our audience and our supporters are going to love who we've got coming on, man.
I think so.
I wish I could tell them all now.
I know.
But you wait and see.
Yeah. It's nice to see that person.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And lest we forget, we should never forget.
You should never forget this.
Please, everyone, it's very important that you like and subscribe. And if you can find it in your heart and your pocketbook, as I always say, please join us on Patreon. It really makes an extraordinary difference, and it will keep the lights on and keep this show going for as long as you will tune in, and you can really help us out there. So
the Decon Chamber, YouTube,
at Instagram,
Twitter,
on X,
Facebook,
yes,
everywhere,
and on audio now, is it?
And on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
The show has begun. Set your phasers to fun. You're guaranteed for a trip. Step into the Decon with Connor and Dom. It's the Decon Chamber.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Trekkies and Trekkers, welcome back to another episode. Actually, scratch that. This is not just another episode. This is truly a very, very special episode of the Decon Chamber. If I might borrow and slightly embellish the iconic line from Mr. Walt Whitman, "Oh, Captain, our Captain." Connor and I will forever be in this gentleman's debt for having given us, frankly, 4 of the most precious, glorious, fun-filled, memorable years of our lives.
Yeah.
I'm going to get emotional. I thought I might.
You already are. It's too late.
He was our mentor. He was our best mate. He was a big brother. He was a leader. And he made those years absolutely joyous. Ladies and gentlemen, a Golden Globe Award winner, a 4 Primetime Emmy Award nominee, a Tony Award nominee, and lest we forget, the Canada Dry Man himself. Finally, Mr. Scott Bakula. Thank you for coming on the show, mate.
Yeah.
It is such an honour to see you here. I thought I was going to get emotional, and I did. We've walked down the memory lane with a few people in the last couple of years, and the more we get into the weeds of what that show meant to us, and the longer the time goes by, the more we understand just what immense you were, mate. And
Well,
we were so lucky to have you.
Well, I'm a little overwhelmed by the introduction, but you're very kind, and it's good to see you both. It really
Likewise.
is, and I'm honored to be here sitting with you, just as it was a joy spending 4 years knuckling around the way we did, and creating something that I think we're all proud of, and still, my understanding is it continues to grow in popularity, and if you're going to spend as much time as we spent together, I was lucky to have it be you two guys and the rest of the gang.
Yeah.
But it was special time, and I can get choked up. Seeing you get choked up gets me choked up, because I feel the same way. No, you never cried. You're not a crier.
I can't cry.
He had the ducts removed.
That's right.
Of all your cast, we must have been the favourite.
Of course.
But I was going to ask between
my
the two
favorite
of us,
cast members here today.
Between the two of us, who was your favorite? I know the answer.
But you're still an incredibly busy man. I mean, you've just got back from New York, haven't you, at the MCC?
Yep.
Starring in a brand new piece called The Connector.
Yeah.
A couple of fans came up to my table at a convention in San Francisco just now and said they'd gone specially to see it and how wonderful it was. And do you get offered something like that? That was what's his name? Jason Robert Brown.
Yeah.
Who's like, he's a big to do, isn't he?
He's the real deal.
Yeah.
And Daisy Prince.
Yes, directing
Also, and Jonathan Sherman, who wrote the book, and I did get offered it.
God bless.
Which was a lovely thing. It's something that I'd been talking about for years, that I wanted to go back to the theater. I mean, you guys heard me talk about it, I'm sure, but I always felt like I wanted to end back on the theater and doing musicals, because Connor loves musicals so much. The only thing that would have made it better if it was Sweeney Todd, because that's absolutely his favorite musical ever. He loves actors singing on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, well, I don't forget stuff.
You don't.
Our benefactor and our best mate, actually, Dave Tapp here, took us all out to go and see Aladdin last weekend. I had not been to a big musical like that in a long time, and I got to tell you, it's we were front row, and it's an experience.
Yeah.
The chap playing Aladdin was fantastic, and the guy playing the genie was mesmeric.
Yeah.
And what a voice.
Yeah.
You still go? Do you go to singing lessons every week still?
Yeah.
You do,
still
don't you?
Yeah,
With Chelsea?
Yeah, Chelsea, and we have actually a group now. It's kind of like a class, if you will, but our voice teacher, as life goes on, our first voice teachers that we had when we worked together, both of them passed away, and their son, who taught voice in New York, Steve Sweetland, moved out to L.A. and he kind of took over. He kind of retired, but took over their students, and he just passed away also 2 years ago. And we continued in his last year of his life. He said, I can't teach anymore, but why don't you guys come over on a Friday, and whoever wants to sing, and one of the students plays a piano. So we formed this kind of group, and he passed in a very interesting way. And he passed on a Saturday. The last Friday, we were all singing in his living room, and he was in the bed in the back. He couldn't get out of the bed anymore. And we all went in and said goodbye to him, and he passed the next morning. So we've continued that group. So we sing every Friday.
You'll never walk alone.
There you go.
You started singing quite young, didn't you? You have a fairly musical family.
Yeah.
There was a piano, and your
Dad
mom
was a concert
encouraged that.
pianist, wasn't he?
Yeah. He played and a lawyer.
And a proper lawyer.
Yeah. But no, we've
what a disappointment you turned out.
Oh my God, yes. But we got past that eventually, the disappointment. But no, just my mom, musical singer. She taught drama in school when she was a school teacher. We were around that. I was surrounded by it growing up, and I got some opportunities at a very young age to do some musical things, operettas. One was at church, one was with a choir from school. It was just little different things. And I had a rock and roll band, and it starting in the 4th grade, and I loved doing that. And then started, writing music and doing all that. And one thing led to doing musicals, and then I love musicals. My parents used to go to New York like once a year, and they would bring back albums in the day, and they'd bring back, here's Angela Lansbury,
Dad
and Mame.
worked at some eating club, didn't he, or something?
He went to Princeton, and
that was right. And he sort of met and got an idea for it there.
Yeah, he went with the guys that had money would take him into New York, and he'd see shows, and he loved that. So he and my mom would go back, and they'd bring home albums, and we would play the albums until you couldn't play them anymore. And I just, that was kind of something I fell in love with. Never ever dreamed that I would be doing this.
Right.
I thought maybe, I never dreamed that I would be doing anything except, probably being a lawyer and living in St. Louis my whole life.
At what point did you get on stage the first time, like in a say proper musical or a proper play?
7th grade, it was a musical an English chap wrote it, Menotti. Called Amal and the Night Visitors. It's a famous Christmas show that's done all the time, and usually it's done, the young boy in it is usually played by a young girl, because it's a boy soprano, and they can't usually find them. It's easier to find a girl and make her look like a boy.
Right. And they're British.
And they're yes, they've reversed the years of not letting women work, so they just said we'll let the women now take the young boys' roles. So anyway, that was my first big thing.
Was the hook sort of set then?
Yeah. I had some great adults in the show with me. They accepted my immaturity in terms of being an actor, and they encouraged me.
And then there was this national tour for Godspell, wasn't there? That was the first time you were going to, like, I'm not going to college, Dad.
Yeah.
Here come the bright lights.
Yes.
I'm leaving home. And then that fell apart.
It fell apart. Yeah, it was kind of a disaster. Lots of things that fell apart at the time. But yeah, I'd done 2 years of going to the University of Kansas and partying pretty much
The whole time.
Yeah. And had some great buddies and had a great time. But academically, it wasn't pleasant to me or fulfilling. And so the last semester I was there, I switched to theater, thinking, well, that's what I really want to do. And my parents said, sure, switch to that. You can still go back to being a lawyer or whatever when when you graduate. And I was like, well, I'll be a trial lawyer. So I can, because I get up and
I know that feeling too.
Sounded good, right?
Rumpled at the Bailey was my. That's what I was going to do. then did you ever read any law? I mean, it's tedious.
Oh, no. There it is. The first one. Thank you. Boom. Dropping it. No, my brother became a lawyer, though, and lost his eyesight, in law school because he had to sit in those stacks and just read those tiny little books and those tiny little print. But I dodged that. So, and I left school to do this tour. And the tour fell apart.
Did you do any dates? Or
No.
Never even got to a stage?
It just was supposed to start in September. Right. School starts in August.
Right.
I had to make a decision. I said, I'd like to try this, get it out of my system. If I like it, then, maybe it'll be something. If not, I'll go back to school. And they said, yeah. And they said, okay. So that was kind of them. And I don't know what I would have done, actually, if they'd said, no, we think that's a terrible idea. I probably would have gone back to school at that moment in time.
Was Mandy Patinkin there when you were there at KU?
No. Was he at KU?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently so. Oh. Yeah. So you go to New York, 76, when New York was like, that was a tough town, 76.
It was rough. I'd never been to New York either.
You'd never been to New
God.
York?
No, I'd never been.
Where did you live? And
I started out crashing on a friend. My director had in St. Louis that said you should go to New York. And I said, I don't want to go. When I decided, what am I going to do? I'll sit at home, or I can maybe I'll go to a real theater school. No offense to the KU department, but I was like, oh, well, maybe I should apply to Carnegie Mellon or one of those places that I didn't dream of, like a Yale drama school or anything like that. I didn't have those kinds of aspirations. But I got back to curriculums, and I was like, I've been doing this stuff for so long. What am I going to go and improvise with a comb for 5 minutes, and see what I can do with that? And I just decided I would go to New York. So I crashed on this girl's couch that I'd never met. I got there on a Wednesday. She said, "You got to go by Friday because my parents are coming to town." I was like, "Oh,
great!
That's going to be an awakening." And I got a little place for, I think it was $50 a night, maybe, in Hell's Kitchen. The Washington Jefferson Hotel, which is no longer there. That block was totally demolished, with a bathroom down the hall, and people screaming at each other all night long.
Oh my God.
The payphone that you started a career from.
Yeah. You have to explain what payphones are to people.
Yeah, exactly.
And the answering service you called into, and all of that crazy stuff. But I had the enormous good fortune of the same guy that said, Ira Rasnick, who suggested that I go to New York, said, pick up a backstage when you get there, because that's how you get into show business.
Yeah.
And there's this new musical called Shenandoah that's got a lot of guys. It's all guys, so you should check that out. So I went to New York. I did that. I got there on a Wednesday, and it said Friday auditions for a non-equity dinner theater tour in North Carolina. And auditions on Friday, and I went on Friday, and I called my parents that night, and I said, I got a job. I'm going to make $100 a week, and room and board, and on this little bus and truck thing. I drove the truck from Raleigh to Charlotte and back, when we were moving shows around. And
you are a sort of glorified removal men as well as, you know.
Oh, yeah.
As well as just
so
doing
who
the
wants to
show.
drive the truck? I was like, I'll drive the truck. So me and a couple other guys. And so I had a job, you know, 3 days in. And that turned into having friends, because I didn't know anybody in New York either.
Right.
So I made a bunch of friends in that company. They were all really talented people. And one of the actors, uncle, was an agent, came to see the last run through we did before we left New York, and said, "Call me when you come back to New York."
That Joe, who was
Jerry
that?
Hogan.
Jerry Hogan, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Became your first agent in New York.
Yeah. So I was kind of.
And this was a small world thing I saw. You understudied in Is There Life After High School?
Yeah.
And Harry Groner
Yeah.
was in that show.
Yeah,
so you
sure.
became mates because he worked with Harry Groner at the Geffen.
Yeah.
And then Harry came on our show in the fourth
Yeah.
season in that Federation.
Yeah, Harry came on Quantum Leap with me, and
did,
you know,
he?
I had
did
a
he?
guy. He did my.
Were you instrumental in bringing people like that along that you'd met along the way?
Yeah, I mean,
quite good at that.
they brought me. I mean, you didn't need to bring Harry Groner
No,
along. He was
right.
kind enough to come. You know, I said,
Right,
Harry,
right.
you know, I directed an episode of Quantum, and I said, I'm doing this thing. Will you come and, you know, will you play a part in it? And so, he was very gracious about that, because
Had
he
he
was.
already done Cats?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I saw him do that in New York, and you know, and he did the revival of Oklahoma.
Right.
I'm blanking on the party. You know, I'm just a guy who can't. Everything's up to date in Kansas City. Will Parker,
Will
I think
Park,
that's it. Yeah.
right.
He did that. I'd seen him. You know, he was a real deal, and I was, you
Right.
know, I was doing okay in New York, but nothing like Harry Groner.
he's the kindest guy.
He's a sweetheart,
He is
and
a
his wife
sweetheart.
Dawn. I mean, they're really good people.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
always very kind to me. And when I was I'm in an understudy, and I'm with all these other people that are, you know,
established and
big guys,
seasoned,
big
right.
men and women, and in New York, and for some reason they didn't totally just, you know, shun me,
Right.
because there were two guy understudies and two women understudies, and it was a cast of 10 or something.
Did you ever get to go on as an
No,
understudy?
no. I got close. One of the guys who just came to New York and saw me, Philip, he went to visit his girlfriend in Philadelphia on a day off, and there was a snowstorm, and they said, Phil, he's not going to make it back into New York tonight. And this was in previews. I had no costume. I literally went back to my apartment at dinner and grabbed a turtleneck and some other horrible things. They had the other guy understudy was going to do all the scenes, and I was going to do all the songs. So, and we worked all day long. We'd had no rehearsals, no put-ins or anything. And he walked in at 5 minutes to 8 and went on.
Covered in snow.
That would have been good in good effect.
I made it.
I walked all the way from Philly.
Bakula, sit down.
Yeah.
Some asshole slashed my tires. And Scott's like,
What knife?
And then it's three guys naked from the waist down gets you the big notices, doesn't it? And
Yep.
then you come out to California with that,
Yep.
to the Pasadena Playhouse, and that really, it was a big hit here, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, that was just like it got me out to
It got you back to LA.
It got me out to LA in a good way.
Yeah, you didn't come sort of,
No, I did a different musical at the Tiffany when the Tiffany was around.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if you guys
I
remember
did
that.
my first job here at the Tiffany.
Yeah, me
God
too.
bless Alfie.
Yeah.
With Adam Faith. How
Oh my
about
gosh,
that?
yeah.
And that was my first gig in LA.
Crazy.
How about that?
Yeah.
On
yeah.
Sunset.
Yep.
For those who don't know, it's been nuts now. Something.
Oh, it's gone for a while.
You know,
it's gone for a
yeah.
while. But yeah, I was there doing a musical, and I'd done a Disney Sunday night movie of the week, if you remember those things, the
Yeah.
Wonderful
Yes.
World of Disney.
Oh, yeah.
And I did this one called I-Man, which is an indestructible. This guy's a taxi driver and he's got a son, and he lives in Houston, and there's an accident, and one of the NASA trucks is flipped on its side, and he gets out of his cab and runs over and saves the guy. But in that little van, there's a canister of gas that's leaking, and it's from outer space or somewhere.
What?
And it gives me some interesting
powers.
special powers. It was called I-Man for indestructible. So I was kind of like, the only thing that could kill me was darkness.
Oh.
I was kind of like a plant. Right, so I got electrocuted. They did everything to me in this. But it was a 2-hour Sunday night movie of the week, and all of that hoopla.
Watching those Sunday Disney movies, yeah.
Yeah, and my agents had said for years, don't go to L.A. unless you have something.
Right.
And I had that coming out in February, and I coincidentally got this musical that I could start in January. So I came out. That was a huge hit, and that kind of put me on the map. Just not that people came and saw it, because I learned very early that nobody in LA comes to see you, but they would say, "Oh, Nightclub Confidential, did you see it?" Yeah. No, but I heard it was great.
Yeah.
And I heard you were great, so we wanted to meet you, and that worked for me. So that's how I got started.
I wanted to back up just for a minute. The experience of doing a Broadway show that goes for 17 performances must be heartbreaking.
What are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about my experience.
We ran for 9 months when I was on Broadway.
And 17 seems to be the magic number.
17?
You make 17, you're either going or that's it. What is it? Is that 2 weeks and a couple of matinees, and they've decided?
I have no idea. I don't think anybody was counting, but
right.
You're just done.
You're talking about Marilyn, an American fable,
and the fable,
and which they based the show Smash on, the TV musical. That's all based on the failure of the original Marilyn, and they were going to remake Marilyn, and that's what they got all of their funny material about. Oh, that original Marilyn was horrible, and they did that and that, but we're going to get it right this time, and blah blah. And they're now making that Smash into a musical.
All right.
And I don't know what they're going to include.
Full circle.
Full circle. They haven't called me yet.
I was going.
But I don't think I'm too old for DiMaggio anymore. But. So that was an interesting time. That's a long story, that journey of that.
How long was the Connector? Did you do a nice run there?
We did 80 shows.
That's great.
Yeah,
It's a very prescient piece, isn't it? About is it based loosely on something like the Atlantic or the New Yorker?
Exactly.
And people making up stories that they did in the mid-90s.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool and very relevant today.
Very
it's
relevant.
Just talking about the difference between truth and facts and all of that stuff, and what and how that works, and who takes it in, and how it's perceived. Which on the face of it probably sounds a little odd for a musical, but it worked great, and it was.
He's a very clever writer, isn't he?
Yeah, Jason is amazing,
very
and the
smart.
book was really. I've said this about Jonathan's book, but one of the best books for a musical that I've ever read, because it was really more, I felt, a play with music, because it was very heavy.
And it's very much about women in the workplace, and
the women kind of reveal, the guys. I was an old time editor, and this young guy comes in, and he's very facile and smart and hip, and knows how to work the room. And he reminds me of myself at that age, and aspiring and brilliant and all this stuff. So I take him under my wing, and he completely dupes me and everybody else for a certain amount of time, and then brings everybody down with him. So, and it's based on, sadly, many stories. There's a woman who wrote for the Washington Post who won the Pulitzer and had to give it back. I mean, she created a story, I believe, about a young child on crack in D.C. Do you remember, Dave?
I vaguely remember
something like that. This is me. If my wife were here, she'd say mansplaining, and she'd be right. But it's because I don't remember all the details. But there are many stories similar to the one that we told, and then somehow Jason figured out. I think originally they were going to do the book and 3 songs, then it grew into a musical, and it was all Daisy Prince. She conceived it, and started working on it in the early like 2003 or something, and it finally came to.
So now that you're sort of an empty nester, you and Chelsea can go and live in New York while you do that. How lovely and fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was winter in New York, which is my wife, being a California girl, is not necessarily her favorite thing to do. She did everything. She got the right place and found the right, everything. And for me, it worked. It was fantastic.
But you can go home, back to the sun.
Yes, and we did.
Yeah,
we ran. But also, it wasn't a terrible winter in New York. So. But my place was 10 minutes. I could walk to the theater every day. and that was just great. And I could go home between shows, and you know, New York's a lot like L.A. now, and the actors can't live in the city anymore.
Right.
You've got to live somewhere else. You got to get on a train for an hour in
anywhere in
Brooklyn,
Manhattan.
or you know, you just can't.
Brooklyn,
and these are people that have been around in the business for a long time.
Right.
But the young people, especially, it breaks my heart that we can't figure out a way to do. We have all these cities that are known for their art and their artists and developing and creating, but the young people can't afford to live there anymore.
Right.
You know, unless they're six in a room in a flat. You know, still that's not in New York. That's in Brooklyn, or that's across in Jersey or whatever.
Yeah. In the late '90s, I was living in Brooklyn. I mean, I couldn't afford New York. I mean, also, I could actually have an apartment in Brooklyn, and I couldn't in New York. It'd be the same thing. You'd have 5 other strangers living in 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awful.
It is. It's tough. I mean, and a couple of the younger folks in the Connector, we were talking about stuff, and how's it different? And I said, well, you guys have not only, I just came to New York and I wanted to be in musicals, and I wanted to audition, and I wanted to study as much as I could. I wanted to go to classes and then figure a way to make a living, so that I could. But you guys, you have to do all of that stuff. Plus, you have to have a website now, and you got to have followers, and you got to have a podcast, and you got to have and these guys are. What are you doing on your day off? Well, I'm teaching. I'm they're all they're hustling, or they're doing everything.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a
ride.
failure of our system here that we don't take care of, because there's some. You guys know this. We've worked with a lot of them, but these young people these days are really gifted.
Yeah.
They're coming out of schools. They've got great training, way better than I mean, I rolled in from nothing, and
You see some of the chops on Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels,
and they're fantastic.
Kids playing the guitar or whatever instrument. Right. And talking of which, your boy Owen is a dancer, right? Mm-hmm. He's the one of the
Will's a musician and a producer and a writer, and he's got a band called Phone Boy. They're out of Portland. Right. And they just released their second album a couple of weeks ago. It's doing really, really well.
So he'd be about 20 what now?
Will is 28.
Because he was, I guess he was
he's going to be
6, 7, something like that. Yeah. And Owen was maybe 4 or 5.
Oh, he was a baby. Yeah,
he was a baby.
They were born.
Is he a company member, Owen?
Owen, yeah. He just finished his second season at South Carolina Ballet.
Wow.
And he's. I got to say that I should say that right. They are very, very serious. The Hague for 2 years after he left high school, 2 years in Louisville Ballet, then 2 years in South Carolina Ballet, and back here now and deciding what he wants to do next.
Well, be sure to give them our best.
Yeah, please do. I have
very fond memories of both of them, and Cody
coming to the set. Yeah, Cody's here. He's working. He's a jeweler and. Goldsmith, and he works at Chrome Hearts.
And,
gosh!
I know Chrome Hearts.
Yes,
I was sadly at a memorial service for a dear friend of mine passed away, and she was very friendly with Laurie from Chrome Hearts.
Oh my gosh!
So how about that?
I remember so clearly. Jasper hadn't showed up yet.
Yeah,
and you would come to work.
How old is Jasper?
Jasper's 18. He's graduating on June 1st.
Holy
from high school.
Strapping.
Smokes. And what's he going to do?
He is going to do the CC route for a couple of years, and he's interested in agriculture.
Cool.
At the moment, I think that would probably lead him maybe toward UC Davis. Mm-hmm. They've got a great program, but you get into the CC program, it also it makes it so much easier to get into the CU, the UC, and the Cal State programs.
Yeah.
In California, but I remember. But he's great. Thank you for asking.
Good. Good.
You would come into work, and I don't know how it would come up, but you'd say, "I didn't sleep at all last night."
You were incredible. I mean, I don't know how you did it, mate. Literally. And Owen was quite a tricky. He didn't sleep.
We've always joked that if Owen was not our last child, he would have been.
That's why I have one, because Jasper. I would think about this all the time. 5 o'clock in the morning, having not slept. Trudging up and down the stairs, just beg, please go to sleep.
Yeah,
please go to sleep.
Yeah, you have to march up and down those stairs.
Yeah,
don't you?
5 years. 5 years.
Unbelievable.
And, he'd be happy as a clam all day long, and then just unable to go to sleep. Yeah. And I would think about you and weep a little.
5 years beat Owen. Owen was about 4.5 years.
God bless. I remember
4.5 years. We got 5. I can think of maybe 5 nights where we slept all the way through the night.
And I remember us celebrating your 50th birthday on the set in the 4th season.
Yep.
And privately thinking to myself, gee, that's kind of old.
You were not private about any of that stuff, Dom. You didn't keep those kind of thoughts to yourself, ever. You old fart, move over.
Now, what we wouldn't all give, I'd give my back teeth to be 50 again. Honestly.
Would you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, how are you fit? You went vegan, didn't you?
Yeah.
Are you still maintaining?
10 years, yeah.
Was that Chelsea led you down that
Chelsea
route?
had a,
She's always been very conscientious, hasn't she?
Yeah. She ended there because she had an emergency appendectomy.
Oh, did she?
And
was it close?
Almost died from it.
Oh.
She had a week in the hospital.
Oh my God.
Went back, and it was really a rough.
That can just happen.
A rough haul. But one of the reasons, and they were talking about taking her gallbladder out, and in addition to the appendix, and she ended up getting some advice to stop with animal products, no oil, no anything like that, to get to let everything calm down, and that was the beginning of it.
Wow.
And I'd always wanted to do it, and so she did it a year, and then the rest of us were eating the way we always eat, and so we were kind of making meals for this kid. Chelsea gets this kind of meal. I'm getting this kind of meal.
It's exhausting.
And then after like a year, I said, I think I'm going to join the story here, so that she and I would eat the same thing. And that's
no fish even. No,
I think we ate fish for about the first 3 years.
But unfortunately, so much of the fish is crap now too.
That's exactly right.
No.
Yeah. So we were kind of. I loved oysters, and I was in New Orleans,
God.
So I think I had maybe.
Crikey, you were being vegan in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, but I think I had the first. I think I had the first 2 years of being able to eat everything in town, and I did. So I tried everything. I ate the alligator, and I ate all. I did all this stuff, and then that was the end of it. So
I did.
Well, you look great. I mean, I have to say, you and Michael Dorn. I did a couple of years. Do you remember? I mean, it was Anthony Williams' book that got me on that sort of route. And I'm mostly plant-based, but I will have to say, if I went to fish eventually, and every now and again, if Dave takes us out for a steak.
There you go. Good.
It's grass-fed. Once in a while.
Hugged.
Hugged and grass-fed.
Plant-based is the right phrase. That's what I am.
Was it a difficult transition?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you think about anything that you do 50 plus years.
Yeah,
you're eating one way, and then you change, and your body's used to it.
Right.
And there's just a whole.
There is, isn't there?
Reassembling kind of your
energy.
Did you
get super skinny to start with?
No, I never. No, not really. I mean, I think I'm probably from 10 years ago. I'm probably down, between 15 and 18 pounds.
Right.
But that's kind of leveled off. I got thinner. I got really thin when I was training for marathons.
I was going to say, do you still run the marathons?
No. But I was thinking about trying to get in shape to run one.
Could your knees do it? I mean, you
guys know.
This is
you know
what
about
I'm
knees.
about.
I think about you all the time, because Chelsea had knee surgery a few years ago, and I remember you like, well, I'm going to get the knee surgery, and first you hobbled around for like a year and just ate it. And then you said, they're gonna fix me up, and I'll be ready to go in 4 weeks or something like that. But I don't know if yours was that way or not, but she tore her meniscus.
Yep.
And then they said the same thing. Don't worry about it. You're going to be fine.
I've torn it again. I just literally had it done again.
Oh my God.
And now I've got sacroiliac stuff. It's no fun.
Well, that's why you want to go back to 50.
That's why I look at.
Right. None of those things happened then.
Like back teeth, 50 again.
I thought there was a teeth thing.
These aren't even real.
Hey, I'm British. For British, these are pretty good teeth.
Very good teeth. A+ teeth.
I did the second season of The Purge in New Orleans, and the craft service lunches, unbelievable.
Yep.
Grilled oysters.
Yep.
Meats everywhere.
Yeah.
And do you miss it?
I don't really. You know what? I miss smells, or kind of trigger me sometimes. But like, we were somewhere recently, and somebody sat down, and they had a big thing of bacon and shrimp or something to the table next to us. We almost had to leave because it kind of made me sick. And there's no condemnation there at all. I just can't handle, we don't really. I barbecue stuff for people still at the house.
You will?
We'll cook we haven't cooked a turkey in a long time for people at Christmas, but still the kids like can you grill a big salmon or something for a holiday? So we'll do that still.
So the kids have not followed suit, especially.
Owen is.
Owen did.
Owen did, and Will is very plant. He's close to it. He's had some health problems that he solved by giving up cheese, and giving up, and that changed, a big thing for him.
Right.
He was a pasta with butter and cheese. That was his main, white food he ate for years.
Right.
And then all of a sudden his body said no, and he was about 14.
Yeah. And
his body, he had some thrush around his mouth, and he was going to high school, and his face was all red and everything.
Poor lad.
And he had constant postnasal drip and like a cold, and our guy said, why don't you just try and get him off the gluten and just start there. And 2 days it was gone.
Yeah.
Everything was gone. And it was like, okay. Our philosophy is we're giving kids our kids have all the information. And we have other family members. I have a nephew who's got borderline celiac, and the same thing was get off the gluten, and he has information. Yeah. So if he wants to go have a pizza and drink regular beer with his buddies, he knows he's going to have problems with his stomach for a couple of days. Yeah. But he knows how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then you make your own choices, from there, and that's all we all do, right?
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I was probably gluten-free for 8-10 years, but now it's like, if you're going to have the best pizza in the world, go ahead. Yeah. But you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah. Well, some people pay for it a lot. I mean,
most of my family is now gluten-free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Dean Stockwell was much of a vegan.
No, Dean wasn't.
He was a man's man, wasn't he? It was great when he came on our show, I have to say.
Yeah.
I know he just passed away, didn't he, a couple of years back?
Yeah, a couple of years. We had we had a real bad run with our family and friends for like a solid year.
I've just had a brief, few months of.
Sorry about that.
The walls close in, don't they?
And
you start to start to look at your own time on the planet and how precious it is. And we just had Mr. Shatner in the chair.
Yeah.
As gung-ho as ever, mate.
He's 93 years young.
He is amazing.
He is
amazing.
He
always has been amazing.
Yeah.
He really is.
Doesn't stop moving.
He has something burning inside of him that wish we could.
He really does
market that thing and spread it around. Indeed. Because he has a passion for everything.
He's busier than ever.
I know.
I mean, literally.
I haven't seen him in a few years, but the last time I saw him, my head was spinning. He was getting ready to open the Broadway show, and he was doing the book, and he had a thing, and he was recording an album, and he's
and still riding pretty much every day.
Yeah.
He backed off. He said he backed off a little bit of that. There's a small world connection. Your father-in-law bought a horse from him.
Yep.
I saw when we were doing some research on you.
The
Lady in Red.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and Will, and that I didn't realize that Will was named after Chelsea's dad.
Yeah, that's why the one L, because her dad was Wilfred.
Right.
And for those that don't know, my in-laws were both British.
Yes.
And came over after World War II through Canada into the States, and so anyway, our Will was born, and that's the name we came up with.
That would bring me rather sharply to a question that's been on my mind for you for quite a long time. The love of your life, a glorious lady, she's called Chelsea.
Yes.
You named your first child Chelsea.
No.
No?
Different wife.
Different, but you named your first child, your daughter, Chelsea.
Yes, that's true.
But you support Aston Villa. up with that?
Who said I support Aston Villa? You're making that up.
I'm not making that up.
You're totally making that up.
I seem to remember you were a Birmingham boy.
No. My relatives were from West Brom, so they were Albion.
Oh, they were West Brom.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, so
even worse.
So
you're getting hot under the collar about this.
This is Leicester, lads. I know. Am I right? Leicester.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're coming back up. I don't know if you noticed.
Keep
we won the
dreaming.
Championship 2 weeks. Yeah, just literally
you
2
did?
weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, I've been
we'll
out
be
of
back
it.
in the Premiership next season. God bless. Yeah, since we haven't seen each other, we won the Premiership. Do you remember? I mean, I don't know if it's the greatest sporting achievement of all time, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Let it be said. This is like Modesto winning the World Series.
It was a
feat like no other. We're digressing.
No, I stopped paying attention.
Yes, that's all right. That's all right.
I had a question.
We have been digressing though.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about
talking about food and
about Enterprise. I've been told this. I don't know where. That you're a big John Wayne fan. Am I correct in a?
No,
not
particularly.
No?
I grew up on John Wayne.
Right.
I don't know that I'm a big fan of his. Tell me what the question was.
The question is,
maybe we can work. Maybe we can salvage this.
Right. Well, did you in some way? Well, you didn't, of course. But I heard that you had modeled Archer after sort of John Wayne's style. Which I never saw, by the way.
Would that I have thought that cleverly and could have come up with an idea like that for myself.
So that's a no, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it.
I read that in the National Enquirer.
Thanks. I love people that create those kinds of stories, and sometimes they're. I mean, that would have been an interesting idea.
Did you read in the New Yorker?
It wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah.
Did you model Archer after anything other than just your impression of what a captain would be like?
No.
No.
I mean, I did not model. I didn't have somebody in my mind.
So you'd stayed friendly with Gary Hart and Kerry McCluggage, hadn't you?
Yeah.
And then they went to Paramount.
Yeah.
And you've got a buddy, Dave Fuller, that had written this great script, a sci-fi piece that you went to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then. How does that go from there? You're in the room.
Well, I said, I want to do this. This is the show I want to do next, and da-da-da-da-da. And they said, sorry, we're not really in the market for that right now. And then they called me the next day and said, but, do you want to come and do our next Star Trek, the next version of Star Trek? And I said, and in the pause, then I think it was Gary who called me. Or maybe it was Carrie said, it's 100 years before Kirk. And in my head, I said, I'm in. Because that was...
Because initially you were like, I'm not...
I didn't want to follow... I didn't know captain. I didn't know what that would be. Right. And being a huge fan of the franchise and the franchises, and especially the original show, because that was more my era, it didn't like, oh, yes, because people will say, you've ran into a lot of people that have done this franchise. Mm-hmm. And so many of them will say that they always dreamed about, wouldn't it be great to be, if I could have only be on Star Trek or on and I never had that dream. I mean, where I grew up, I never dreamed about any of that stuff. I was like, I love the show, it's great, but I'm not going to ever be on television, so I don't have to, I didn't entertain a thought like that. But immediately on 100 Years Before Kirk,
that was the hook.
Yeah. I'll do that. But
you walked into a pack of pretty green actors. You'd had your show in England. I'd done a few guest star spots, and I think Linda had just gotten.
John was the most seasoned, wasn't he? Really? Billingsley.
Yeah. And
but Joe was completely green, really, and Linda had done a couple of. I think it was her second audition. God bless her.
Yeah, and the first one she got, which was Jurassic Park 3.
Don't you hate it?
Yeah, her first
Is
two
that
auditions,
right? The
yes.
first one she got
the
was
first
Jurassic
audition she had in L.A. was Jurassic Park 3. Got that, and then got this,
and then walked into 7. What was going to be 7 years? Yeah. We were robbed. Do you feel robbed that we didn't do the 7? How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's again a long story that most people won't care about, but we can always talk about it.
Do you know the nitty gritty? Because we interviewed Rick, and we sort of got some sort of.
Well, I would have loved to know what Rick thought about it, but the quickest version I can say is that we were rushed into production. for UPN.
Yeah.
To give them an anchor, somebody to to base their
right.
Back when a network needed something like that.
Yeah, and they were a fledgling network at best. We instead of being on
an established.
No, what am I trying to say? Well, all the other guys were never on. They weren't on regular.
Oh, they
television.
were all
they
syndicated.
Were on, syndicated. Thank you. That's the word. So if we'd been syndicated, we would have had 7, no problem. Right. They would have just gone to 7. We would have been great. But because we were on regular television, which no other franchise except now they're on regular television, kind of ish.
Yeah.
But no one has ever been on. No franchises would have survived, I don't think, on a regular network. So the fact that we got 4 years was great, and I'll leave it at that. And I'm grateful that we had those 4 years. I'm so grateful we got the 4th season, so we could kind of finish that whole Zindi arc and bring that to a close. I felt fortunate about that. Yes, in the back of my head, I thought we would hopefully get 7. But if you recall, Dean got fired very early on. There was a changeover at CBS. Les took over there. I forget the lady that came in to
Dawn Ostroff.
Dawn, thank you.
Carrie
she came in. Carrie got let go.
Yeah.
John got let go up in the movie department. All the people that loved.
Les Moonves had no interest in the show whatsoever. Bless him.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't necessarily agree about that, but Les was, he was a numbers guy, and we were on a regular network.
Yeah. Right.
And they never had anybody to pair us with. Think about who they put us with. We never had anybody that was we were simpatico with in terms of programming. So we were always the odd man out. And it sounds like I'm crying over here about spilled milk, but
it was the changing face of TV, really.
It was, and we were kind of caught in the middle of it. We were in that time when UPN was the beginning of what was really coming, which was everybody owning their own side network.
Right.
And but we were still, that network was a collection of stations across the United States that Carrie went around and just went and
we get bumped in Texas every Friday night for high school bloody football.
What I heard was that even in St. Louis, we would be bumped for the local for the Cardinals playing.
Sure, yeah. I would have bumped us for the Cardinals, but it was sad for a lot of reasons, but mainly because we were having we got along.
Yeah.
The workplace was a pretty darn good workplace.
The best ever.
We had great people, such talented, creative people that we got to work with, just the best in the business. And that part of it was we weren't on location every Friday night till 6 in the morning. No. And that's something that I appreciated, and I know you guys can appreciate that too.
I rode my bike
that one year I lived in Larchmont, I rode my bike too. I could see the water tower from our rented house.
Really?
Yeah, and I would get my little coffee and I had that collapsible bike, and I rode through the gate for a year, and I just thought, this is,
It was joyful.
It was great. It was great. And it was hard work, but it was fun work, and we had a good crew. Good people to work with, and
you were great, mate. I mean,
you're very kind, but you guys were great, and it's not always that way.
No,
that's all.
Right.
And you can sit there and say that till you're blue in the face, but you know when it is, and when it isn't.
You certainly do. It's the air will tell you.
Yeah,
I've worked on sets where you can't wait to get in the car and drive away.
Yeah.
I
read that you had in your contract that. And if this is true, it's so smart, that on Wednesdays you were done at 6 p.m. and you could have dinner with your family.
Yeah. That's not me. That's Chelsea.
Yeah.
But she wanted. Thank goodness we lived close to the studio too, so she could bring the kids.
Yeah. Right.
But going into it, she said, "How are we gonna work this? You got young kids. Well, I had 2 other kids too. We had 4 kids. They were living with us most of the time, off and on, but most of the time we had 4 kids. And she was like, how are we going to maintain our relationship and do this series? And she said, we got to find some ways contractually to help that. Yeah. And I also had a deal on Friday nights too. I forget what it was, but not.
You were done,
it's like once every 3 Friday nights or something, they could work me or something, but otherwise I had to
remember that episode, The Communicator, you and I started a scene at 2:45 in the morning. And we literally drove out of Paramount Gates at like 7:30.
Yeah, but how many times did that happen?
That once. But I have to say, mate, and I've said this to him,
Genius.
I've never been more proud of being a professional actor than that night. And you've been there 16 hours.
Yeah.
And you do a 3.5-page scene. And I watched it the other day in prep, and it was like, that was... Yeah.
We also had such a crew that were so well oiled that, you know, the 14, 16-hour days were a rarity, and 12 happened all the time.
I know, we joke about that. Remember when all the COVID stuff came in and said, we're going to limit the days to, the 12 hours a day. That's it, and and that includes signing in and signing out. So you're only really going to be working 11 hours a day, and everybody's walking around like, man, we are really cut it down, and everybody else in the world is like, you're working 60 hours a week. Yeah. We only work 40 hours a week.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, we got it made now. We're only 12 hours a day. No, but Chelsea said, let's just try and find some things contractually if we can get that done. And I happen to be in a position where we could kind of push that.
Because Quantum was tough on your first marriage, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
And
it's been tough on anybody's marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never home. I mean, people don't get it, but first shot to the last shot, 4.5 seasons, I was there every day except for 4 days. One, I was flying on a plane to do the Macy's Day Parade, and on Wednesday. Right. You don't have to work Wednesday but I didn't know anything. It was my first, really kind of big job, and they would work me till 6 on Saturday morning, and I'd be first up on Monday morning.
Day and a half.
Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll force you. Okay, I didn't know anything, and there wasn't anybody else except Dean. There weren't any of the regulars, so nobody else was bound or looking at me like, well, let's not do that. I mean, if we were doing something like that, you guys this is stupid. We're not going to do that, or we'll bring you guys in to do the first morning on Monday morning, and then Scott shows up at 1 o'clock, so you get your 56 hours or whatever the hell
we didn't mind a force call. We used to call it the sofa call.
Of course, that's exactly right. I remember you guys calling that all the time. I love that. I use that quote often.
We're thinking about forcing you. Go right ahead. You go right ahead.
Right.
But in our schedule, that was an easy thing to accept most of the time.
Right.
But yeah, I was grateful for that. I also was coaching a lot of sports for my kids then too, for Will, and so I would try and work like Thursday practice off so I could get to the Saturday, and figure that off.
And you were 50.
And Mary and Brad, and I was old, and Mary and Brad would figure that stuff out, and they were great.
They were great. We had Mary on the show.
We had Mary on the show.
Oh, yeah, wonderful.
She was terrific. Brad has literally just walked away and no, I'm done.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
but think about who we inherited, in that crew that had worked on Voyager.
There were 16 or 17 of them.
Yeah, and then when we went off the air, you think about people that have worked there. Some of them are like, well, we've worked the last 25 years. We've worked in this franchise.
Yeah.
With Rick through all the the way through, and I mean, when does that happen? I mean, when?
I really felt for them, that
I did.
Yeah,
I did
as
too.
Did I. It was actors, we lose our job, we get a job, hopefully, but they had raised their families together, and I felt really bad for them.
Yeah. Oh, that was the devastation of when we lost Jerry.
Yeah.
And that was just like.
Dear. Yeah, it was really his wife. Do you remember being at the memorial?
Oh yeah.
I mean, God bless. She was bitter. I mean, and I think he gave his best years to that studio, and it was very sad. Jerry Fleck. He was our
Jerry
first
Fleck.
AD,
and just the sweetest guy.
Yeah.
Remember, we were out in the desert playing in the sand with him and dumping water on him and doing all that stuff. He was
a sweetheart.
He really was. We didn't have too many of those kind of memories, though.
No,
and I've had a lot. NCIS, we lost a lot of people during that film.
Did you really?
It was just, more than I can count.
Really?
And it was just, and I think back of our 4 years and how that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Except for that, I mean, I can't think of anybody else in.
Did you shoot the entire show NCIS down in New Orleans, or did you did that? I thought they were going to you were going to bring it back to LA for the interior, but no.
That was a conversation.
That didn't happen.
that I lost.
Yeah.
Really.
I lost every year.
I see. The last time I bumped into you was at the golf range, and you'd done 2 years, and you were said, "No, I'm coming back to LA," and I was, "Oh, great."
Yeah.
And that didn't happen.
Scott, we don't have a New Orleans street. We have a New York street.
Could have
we don't
built
have a New
one.
Orleans street. Yeah.
Could have built one very
could've.
easily.
Yeah.
But that was nice. Chelsea got to be on the show. You at least orchestrated that.
Yeah.
And she got a great part on it.
Yeah.
And so I guess you went to live in New
I didn't
Orleans.
actually, you know, I put it out there, and people at the network would talk about it every time they'd see us at an event. You know, they say, "Oh, Chelsea, we got to get Chelsea on the show." And I'd say, "Yeah, that'd be great." But you know, writers have to write it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Brad Kern wrote it. And
God bless him.
You know, and he came in and he said, "I'm going to write a part for her." And people say that a lot too in our business, and they never do. And it's not because they don't mean to. It's just there's a lot that goes into that stuff. But they did, and I'm grateful to him. And it turned out the last year, especially with COVID, I wouldn't have been able to see her.
Right.
But the kids were gone, and so she could come down, and so it worked out.
Great to get them work together and
it was great.
and do scenes and
it was.
Would you then just stay in New Orleans because you would fly back every weekend?
I flew back every weekend for 6 years, and because the kids were still around.
That's quite a...
And that was insanity.
That's insane.
I think back about it, and I think,
how
because there were times I would leave the set at 5 a.m. and drive to the airport and get on a plane.
Commercial.
Yeah. There were people
checking.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No commercial. But
no Clint Eastwood for you, mate.
No. But I used to I learned to really sleep on the planes, and I just I was like a cocoon. I just wrapped up my entire body, and nobody knew who I was. I had a hat on, and I wrapped my whole head up, and I went to sleep.
Would you do another show if one got offered?
Another long-running
episodic?
If it was something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I got very fortunate with NCIS that it allowed me the luxury of being able to not have to work again, and have to work again. So that's my bar now. It's like, is this something I haven't done? People I want to work with, which is a really big thing. People that you too, come up.
Did you enjoy?
Lock the door. I did. But it was hard work.
Yeah.
It was hard work, but grateful to CBS for keeping us on, and again that we lost a lot of people during that run that affected how it went, without getting into details, but.
Yeah,
and the writer staff was
in front of the camera
here.
too. There were a couple of was there?
No, we didn't lose anybody in front of the camera, but we had lots of people in the producers. We had people gotten Me Too'd. I mean, we had it all.
Oh, right. There was drama behind
it.
The
Was
scenes.
it was a lot. Plus, just the reality of being away from home.
And how hands-on were you as a producer on that? Pretty hands-on.
I was a producer in name, probably season, I don't remember anymore, 3, and then executive producer probably for 5, 6, and 7.
And that comes with a whole nother,
Yeah. But there was a whole Megillah.
Right.
But I learned a lot about producing, but the long distance aspect of it, having the writers and post production here, was really hard.
So they were all still up here, right?
Yeah, and they would send the writer, whoever wrote the episode would come down. Right. So we'd have that person on set, and that was good. But just, it's just different when you've got your producers are upstairs and they can come down and talk to you about what the scene is or what we need to do, or we got a problem, let's figure it out. And when you're shooting as many hours as I was shooting, on that show all the time, then it's hard to connect with people on the West Coast. Like, I got to call David Staff and talk to him on the phone, or he's not. I'm ready to talk at 8 a.m. He's not at work yet, and now I'm going to be in the swamp for the next 8 hours, and I can't talk at all. So maybe I'll talk to him tonight, and then you go to the gym, you go work out, you got to get your work done for the next day. You got to look at 20 audition tapes. It's just it's a lot. First time in my life I ever fell asleep a few times standing up.
Oh.
And Chelsea was like, "You're never doing this again."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how to do it any other way."
Right.
So,
did you direct at all?
I did not. I was like, I couldn't even begin to do that.
Yeah.
There was just too much to do.
You did direct Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I did a few. I did 3. Just 3.
You liked it?
I asked like the third year. I said, "Can I,
Do you like it?
Can I do it? I liked it, and there's a director in the room, but I say this in front of other directors. But my favorite part of it was I got rid of the director. I was able to get rid of the director, and just, what do you want to do? What feels right? What do you want to do? This is what I'm thinking. And there are very few directors. David is an actor's director. Livingston, who's off camera right now, but I can talk about him since he's here. But a lot of the directors in the world today aren't really skilled at dealing with actors.
They're dealing with shots,
and they're not necessarily interested in that. And they've come up in a world, and I know lots of people that have come up in this world, and I encourage them and promote their careers, and we talk a lot at length about this. But there's so many directors are concerned about their shot list, about the technicalities of making the day, about putting on a good image for the network, so they can get the next job, and they're not as concerned. They often feel, and also we have a responsibility as actors, because often we're like, don't tell me what to do, director. I know my part. I've been doing this for 4 years. Thank you. You've got a good idea. You know, I don't.
Was that a line reading? Yeah. I think that was a line reading.
but you know what I mean, and so
it was common.
So in this particular case, I could say this is what I think the scene's about. What do you guys think it's about? What do you want to do? And not everybody can play that way. Not everybody wants to play that way.
Right.
No.
Some people are like, I want you to tell me where to stand so I can say my lines and get in my car and go home.
Right.
And then that's okay too. But when there are other people that want to work and kind of create and build,
when it becomes
then it's like
fun and
and that's the theater guy in me. That's what I love, that rehearsal process in the theater. You guys know that you get to create together.
Some magic happens.
And that's my only reason to want to be in this business ever, was because it started in the theater, because you get with some people and you kind of create something and you put it up somewhere. And the lights go down, and you make this little, you walk into and you walk into this little magical bubble, and then you get to put it away. You build relationships with your fellow actors in a different way, because you know find out what makes them tick, and what they like and don't like, and you just get more intimate because you're asking more of each other, right? Instead of just, are your lines memorized? Great. Here's what I'm thinking. You were there. You stand there. You stand there. And I railed against it when I first came out from New York. I was terrible. I was like, what? Why do I have to stand? What's on this mark? And if you want to be in your light, we've lit you on this mark. So that's okay. But I hated it, because I wanted to be, free to figure out what I wanted to do.
Right.
Within a framework, as you have in a rehearsal space, which in the beginning is do what you want to do usually, and we'll see what works. So
we always knew the difference, didn't we? When the director would come on and they'd actually just let us block the scene ourselves naturally, and what came naturally, and then but the other ones were no, you can't stand there. I've got you here.
We called it like going for a bag of nuts. Why am I going over there? I need you to. Oh I'm gonna go grab a bag of nuts.
But we also, I was kind of thinking about our director pool that we had. We were pretty lucky.
Yes,
we were, weren't we? And
we had some great characters, some great experienced people.
Do you know, I was looking up James Whitmore, who you loved. I didn't realise his dad was James Whitmore of
senior of everything.
Of
everything.
For the younger generation, you'll know him as Brooks from The Shawshank Redemption. What an amazing actor! And I did not realise that was his dad. Until just coming up to this.
And Jimmy came down and directed 30 NCISs for me.
Did he?
Yeah, because didn't you kind of bring him into the fold on Enterprise?
He directed a bunch of Quantum Leaps.
Right.
And he's still a buddy. I just spoke to him recently, and he's just a unique guy. But we had a bunch of great people like him, and that also makes it.
Lest we forget.
No, I'm including him in all. That's what makes it. Also made it special. Because it's no fun if you're working with somebody that directs a lot that you don't like. Or you don't feel gets the show or whatever.
Right.
And that's out of your control most of the time.
Yeah, Marvin certainly used to let them know.
Well, DPs are notoriously the worst.
When the newspaper would come out,
the newspaper, those half moon glasses would come up, and the newspaper would come out, and you knew that it was. This is going to be a 5 hour,
long day.
5 hour setup.
Oh yeah. You know, they're not great. They're not actors. They're not good at masking their feelings.
Right. I'm going back to watch Judge Judy.
No, golly, yeah. But that didn't happen very often.
No.
Did I read that you might be doing the Man of La Mancha again?
Yeah. I am with Chelsea.
God bless.
Yeah, and because of Jim Whitmore Jr.
No kidding.
Yeah,
tell us that story. How's this coming about?
Peterborough Players is a theater, small stock theater in upstate New Hampshire.
Right.
Jimmy's dad and mom met there. The theater's been around over 100. I don't know how many years. I should know that, but I think it's 115 years or something.
For America, that's very old. You know.
It is for America. Yeah,
very old.
Yeah. It's a week in England. I understand. Let it go. Let it go. Anyway, he called me and he said we did a famous episode of Quantum Leap where we were doing it. I was an understudy in a production of Man of La Mancha.
That's right.
And I was understudying John Cullum, who did the show and who was unbelievably great and a hero of mine. And he said they're doing La Mancha the last show of the season, and he said, "Oh, wouldn't that be great if you would go back up there?" And he's like, "Scotty, you got to go. It'd be so great. The theater's in trouble because of COVID, and if you could go and get the missus, she'll go with you, and you guys she could do Aldonza. I'd love to see it. I just love to see it." And I said, "Jim, I'm just leaving for New York right now to do this off-Broadway musical. I can't really think about it right now. That's very sweet of you, but I haven't been on or off Broadway in a long time. I need to think about that." And then he said, "Yeah, no problem." So at the end of it, I reached out to the guy who's an interim artistic director up there and said, "So what do you think about the La Mancha thing?" And Jim had talked to him, and he said, "Oh, I think it'd be great." And he came down and we met, and we sat in a room and sang a little bit. And Chelsea came and sang a little bit, and so we're going to do that in August.
The big song is The Impossible Dream, isn't it?
That is the most famous song from the show.
I don't know the show that well. Dale Wasserman, is that who created it? Yeah. Didn't he always rail at the fact that this is not the Don Quixote story, or?
I don't know historically. It's one of my favorite shows. Another great book of a musical, based on all of Cervantes' writings.
Right.
So,
where did you play it before?
When I was 21.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was college summer stock theater outside in Missouri in the summer, which was just
Does a 21-year-old have the life chops to play?
You know what? You know how the guy got me to do it? The same guy that said I should go to New York. He said Keith Michelle did it when he was 25.
Right.
Oh.
Who's a famous British actor. And a great actor, another super great actor, and somebody I'm a huge fan of. And I said, "Oh, okay."
Oh.
So I ignorantly said, "I can do that," and that the part is amazing, and I got to, do it at home and in front of my family, and then I went to New York. I went to New York with dyed black hair, which I'm going to have to dye again. And showed up. All my 8x10s and everything. My first 8x10s in New York City were with jet black, because I didn't know I didn't have somebody do it.
Right.
I just went, got a bottle and threw it in my hair, and it was black hair, no highlight, nothing, just like horrible. And then it's like, "Oh, well, you're going to New York, you need some pictures." And then I look at the pictures and I'm like, who's that guy? Oh man.
Well, you've had somewhat this similar experience with Shenandoah. I mean, you did that very young, and then you went back to the Ford?
Yeah.
And did Shenandoah again.
Yeah. That was full circle. The other part of that is the guy I saw do it was the first Broadway show I saw, and it was John Cullum playing for the role he won a Tony Award for. And then that kind of became I call it my waiter job. I did maybe 6 or 7 Shenandoahs in the first 5 years I was in New York. every time I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go be a bartender. Or like, oh, you want to pick up the last 4 weeks of the national tour and da 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 da. I said, yeah, I'll come there. And you want to go to Paper Mill Playhouse and do it there? John Rate's coming through. Sure, I'll do it. So that instead of having to go do a waiter job, I was meeting more people and getting more, working with other directors and stuff. But anyway, and then full circle, I play Papa Charlie in 2006. So I started in 1976, and as the young suitor, and then I got my equity card, playing in the chorus, and I just did all these different versions of it. I played only two brothers, and then I ended up playing the dad, the father of the family. However many years later that is.
Do it as a one-man show.
Can't do it. There are too many kids. But
he gets in that story, right? Can we get a Scott Bakula type? And it ends over, who was Scott Bakula?
That's the Dean Stockwell story.
Is that a Dean Stockwell?
He was getting ready to leave the business, and they were doing Paris, Texas.
Right.
If you remember that movie?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he was
Dean
somewhere,
Stanton.
and and they said. It was Harry said to him, they're looking for I heard they're looking for a Dean Stockwell type. Right. So he went and called his people and said, I'm here, I'm still alive. I'd be happy to come over, and he went over and he got that part. And then that was the launching of his third career of his life.
It was such a great honor to meet him when he came on our set, and he loved golf.
Oh my God!
We were very keen golfers at the time. We just had us up a storm.
Yeah. Well, he'd just gotten into golf at the beginning of when we started
saw
Quantum.
That when you were talking to, I think it was to Bill in the Captains.
Yeah.
He just started.
He was
game's addictive, man.
He was crazed about it, and we couldn't pull him off the course sometimes. He was just
to come to work.
No, he wouldn't. I mean, and he had the best job in Hollywood because he only worked with me. Not that that's the best job, part of the job, but that he only had to work like maybe 2 days per episode. And then, but when he came in, though, he only ever worked with me, so he didn't have to deal with anybody else.
So he only ever spoke to you, didn't he?
Yeah. So I mean, there were 2 episodes where we changed positions, and I went back, and he became
that silver jacket he wore.
Oh, everything he wore.
Like the lead singer from Diva.
Jean-Pierre Dorliac designed all of his wardrobe, and they had a ball. And Dean was a part of that too.
Couldn't he come in and just look at his lines? And go like.
He was a little photogenic. It pissed me off. It was just like, really? And he taught me a lot. He was like, he knew how to save it and wait and save it for his close-up. And his famous story was, I had how many days did I work? How many days do you think I worked on Blue Velvet? People would be like, Blue Velvet? I don't know, a couple weeks. So he said, I think it was like 2 days. And he said, and the close-up, the last close-up, I told him he had to go back. I told David he had to go back and get that close-up, and that's going to make it. And he went back and got the close-up. I mean, he had all those kinds of stories. Why would you take a part like that? He said, I took a part. If I could steal the show, if I knew I could either steal the scene or steal the movie, that's a part I would take.
Right. And he did.
And he did everywhere he went. He did. I mean, he stole the whole Quantum Leap. We joked about it all the time, but I never knew what the hell he was doing behind me. And it was always something way more entertaining than what I was doing in the foreground, like, I'm sorry you lost your dog, and I'll find him if I can. And he's back there like, puffing on a cigar, and like checking out somebody's boobs, or nothing you could do today. You couldn't really do that role today.
No. I was watching some, and some of it you couldn't. But,
no, it's completely wrong.
Damn good laugh.
Yeah.
And, I saw you in that double episode, the Leap Home, when you age yourself to be, I guess, about your age now. Admittedly smoking 40 Lucky Strike a day. What was that like, aging yourself at that age?
Well, in those days, the aging process started at 11:30 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m.
for the first shot.
And then I walked into the set and started shooting.
That makeup.
And then we took it off at lunch, so I could shoot because you had to do the split screen stuff, and so I had to. We took it off at lunch, And then I would go back after lunch and shoot the other sides of the split screen. And you'd lock the camera off, and you'd, in those days, you'd draw the lines on the monitors so you could figure out who was sitting where and what line not to cross, because you couldn't cross the line into the other guy's screen. And then I'd go home that night, and 11:30, I'd sit in the thing, and Jerry'd make me up all night long until, and then, well, Jerry and Mike, both these guys won Academy Awards and stuff, but it was crazy. But I always loved that stuff. Some people, I don't know if you would maybe fall into this category. And
how did your skin take it? I got pissed off Irish skin, and it just doesn't like the solvent. And
I just can't see you sitting in a chair from. But
I've gotten better. I meditate a lot now.
Good. Good. Why are you laughing, Connor? And
he has gotten better.
Good. Good. But anyway, I always liked that stuff, and I'd done a bunch of it prior to that. I'd done some other sci-fi stuff where I've been in full body cast and everything, and all you have is two straws coming out of your nose.
Yeah.
And you're in there in the old days until the plaster set.
Right.
And then they had to crack you out of it and do all that stuff.
A couple of times. Yeah.
And so I kind of started I-Man. I did all kinds of effects, and I was with like one of the original, and I'm gonna, of course, I'll blank on his name now, but one of the great makeup artists of all time at Disney, and he did Burt Lancaster's makeup, and his first name is Robert, and I'm blanking on it. But that was full on, like, it wasn't cement, but it was, I'd never done anything like it. And I get off a plane, I go to the Disney lot over here, and I go down to his vault where he's an old timer, and he's got 100 heads in the, every movie star from Hollywood, and he's, touring, showing me all this stuff. And he said, "Okay, now here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put you in this plaster thing, and you're going to be able to breathe, but
I think I've been to that very place. He's got Jack Nicholson there, and they're all there.
Yeah, they're probably there.
I did it for Beowulf, yeah.
Anyway, and I remember him leaving at one point, and I'm in utter darkness, and I got I can breathe a little bit, and I think, this would be a great way to kill somebody.
Yeah.
You could just disappear this guy, and just like, what he went into the,
we're just going to close that out.
The guy goes crazy, and all of a sudden he's, getting rid of people.
It's a Twilight Zone.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, stop, slow your breathing down, because you only can breathe through these two little things here. I can't yell for help. Nobody knows.
That's right.
I don't know how we got on that.
I'd love to come. We should come and make a trip to come and see you in the Man of La Mancha. When rehearsals start?
August 1st. It's a long way to go.
Upstate.
It's literally, it's a barn that they converted. It's 230 seats. It's I think it's going to be a blast. But it's that old. When I first went to New York, that's what actors got to do.
Yeah.
You'd go out and do stock theater, and you do 5 or 6 shows a summer, different shows, one a week, and you cut your teeth on that stuff, and you felt like you could do anything.
Yeah.
That's why I used to do Shenandoah. We'd go start in Skowhegan, Maine, at the oldest theater in the United States, summer theater in the United States, and you go to Cape Cod, then you'd cut back to the Poconos Playhouse, then you go over there, and it was insane, and you were young, and it was the best time
loved it
ever.
Yeah,
because you were just there,
doing what you love,
and also getting paid a little bit.
Yeah.
and then just being an idiot.
Those were the days
when the show went down, and the show goes down at 10 o'clock, and there's nighttime ahead.
Exactly.
I remember seeing Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time at Dennis, Massachusetts, on the Cape. And thinking, what's this going to be all about?
Which we want to show that the Halloween that we celebrated.
Yeah.
We got to put that photo. That'll make the cut.
I forgot about that.
Your Frankenfurter was fantastic, and Golden Boy.
Okay, yes,
I was super jealous that I wasn't Golden Boy.
That's a good picture. That's a good picture to put up and also forget.
It's online.
Yes, I'm sure it is. What isn't?
That's right.
What isn't? But yeah, that was we had fun on that show. Birthdays, holidays. You know, we really.
You never did the Christmas parties anymore?
I did them in New Orleans for 6 years. Oh. Yeah. Well, let us know. We didn't do the COVID party.
If you do it back here, we
no! I thought you were talking about the show Christmas parties.
No, I'm talking about the Christmas parties.
When Owen started Nutcracker.
I know.
And that was the end of it.
That was it.
Because we didn't have our weekends free. Because I was stage managing Nutcracker at the Luckman Theater out out the 10 at the college out there, and I had no weekends anymore.
It was always one of our favourite get-togethers, and we'd get to meet. It was lovely meeting the likes of Ray Romano there and Andre Brown and all the other
Bob Saget, another one of my buddies. God bless. That's what I say. That's that was all that same year. Dean and Bobby and my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law and a couple of other mentors and things. It was just a crazy year, but it was fun. We actually this year we started talking about it again because we have time to do it. So we may do it again. Yeah, we may do it again. Great.
Well, I'm chuffed because as he knows, I mean, I'd lost touch with you telephonically, as it were, and I just delivered a letter underneath your garage, your door.
That was the greatest thing. I loved it.
Because I remembered where you lived, and I had Sarah drive me over there. I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't want to fold it up and put it in an envelope because I thought, well, it might miss that. I stuffed it in one of those large SAG residual envelopes that the foreign
I know. I was so thrown by that. I was like,
nicely done.
I thought he'd get a kick out of that.
He said he did this, and I was like, you literally went.
I know. I couldn't
shoved it under the door.
I couldn't figure out, and we've had some weird mail,
stuff,
and so.
Right.
But you could have figured out a couple of ways to get to me. But that was classy, though.
There was
classic.
There was one way I knew I could get to you, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that because
you could have called Jay. You could have called. You could have called a lot of people.
Anyway.
But
I'm glad I did it the way.
It was.
And God bless you. You responded within 2 days, and
I hope I responded faster
than
that.
A day and a half. I mean, it was. I got to tell you, when I called him to say, you'd never guess, he's gotten back to us and he's coming on. And
oh gosh, it's a pleasure. It's so nice of you guys to ask me to be on.
And thank you for coming.
It really. I love you guys.
I love you too.
And I mean that. And I cherish the time we had together. And the beauty of our business is it doesn't go away.
Speaking of which,
exactly. Oh yeah.
It doesn't go away.
Next year is our 25th anniversary.
Yeah. What should we do about it?
Well, are we going to make some Bakula photo money?
Is it our 25th?
Oh, it's 25 right? years.
And 2001. No.
It is. I think next year's our 25th anniversary. It is.
I thought we aired this fall of 2001, but I could be wrong. 1, 2,
who's
3,
good at the math?
4, 5.
I think you're right.
26. Is it 26? All right, you got a year.
Okay, good. Thanks.
You can do La Mancha, and then you're coming back on the con scene.
and speaking of money, we are going to pay you $1 more than we paid Billingsley.
Thank you.
And that will be,
which would be $1. Here's my 50 cents.
I'll get it to you.
Oh yeah. No, you're good. I know you're good for it.
Yeah.
What's your Venmo?
Yeah, would you? Can you Venmo 50 cents? I don't think so. Costs more to Venmo than 50 cents.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
So much. Ooh, hooking around the thing here. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for
inviting me.
Love you
very much.
Yeah. You can see our show on the YouTube channel, the Decon Chamber. We air Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Please join us. Like and subscribe. It's very important.
And if you love what we're doing here, please, you have to play your part and join in. Join us on Patreon, please.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, check us out on Twitter/X, Instagram,
and of course Instagram,
where we post every Wednesday about the upcoming episode.
Wherever else you get your podcasts.
Yep.